Yes, my name is Carol Ann Thomas Horton, Horton being my married name. I am a native of Fredericksburg, and I've lived here all my life except for when I went away to college. I've worked a lot in the area. I'm a collateral descendant of George Washington through the Ball family, his mother. Most of my ancestors came to Virginia in the 1600s, and so I'm related to a lot of old families from Virginia. In this area, I've worked a lot in Stafford County. I was the news editor at one time of the Stafford County Sun, and that's when it was part of the Potomac News in Northern Virginia. And I've also worked for the Freelance Star. I've done a lot of writing and publishing. But I've also been in education, and when I went back into education and got my doctorate in Christian education, I started working again in Stafford County for South Stafford Christian School, which is located right here in the Ferry Farms area. I'm the principal of the elementary division there. Since I've grown up in the area, I've seen a lot of changes. Concerning George Washington, the celebration when I was a child back in the 1960s was very much focused on him instead of President's Day is what we call it now. Excuse me. There was always a parade in downtown Fredericksburg. It was an area celebration, and it wasn't as much focused on Stafford, where he grew up, as it was on Fredericksburg, where his mother lived after he became president. There was always a parade. It was always very cold, and it was focused a lot on the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and I was a Girl Scout. The celebrations at that time were in the Fredericksburg Armory a lot. The National Guard Armory on Route 1 in the Fredericksburg area. That was sort of like our community center. There was a cherry pie baking contest. A lot of people that are baby boomers will remember that, and I never did win, but I entered, and the parade was always very cold, and sometimes events had to be canceled. Their preservation was just coming about. There was, things preserved in downtown Fredericksburg. Stafford wasn't as big back in the 60s, 70s on preservation. It seemed like it was just getting started. But I think that's a very important thing. When I was in the 90s, when I was news editor of the Stafford County Sun, there was a big push to preserve crow's nests, and I'm glad that's now preserved. That's in Stafford County, that whole area, because that's a very unique area. I mean, it was zoned, that and Widewater were zoned for development, and now those are under preservation. And I'd like to see Stafford do a lot more of that. That's very important for future generations, not just history, but to have a place where wildlife and humans can coexist. Another memory I remember is just north of Crow's Nest is the Aquia area. I think it's called Aquia Beach now, but it was Acapulco Beach. We used to go there a lot when I was a child in the 60s, and my family had a boat, and we would swim there. And I remember I had a little swimming ring with a horse's head that got left there when I was a child accidentally at the beach. But I remember that being a place. And then there is a preservation area there for the, I believe it's pronounced Patawomack Indians from America that have preserved some area up there. So that's pretty much my story of the area. I hope preservation like this continues, not just for history, but like I said, also for the wildlife and for future generations. I'd like to see us have cluster more development and have a little bit less residential growth, because residential growth doesn't really pay for itself. I realize you have to have some to support for the businesses to come in, but the history and the historical preservation and the environmental preservation should be just as important. And things like this place where George Washington grew up, I'm so glad that we preserved that, and I hope the Ferry Farms area in general gets more preservation, because Stafford needs more preservation, and allow the development to maybe occur more on the closer to 95.